Hey there, welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing fabulous, thank you very much. And thank you so much for all of those that help this channel by buying a coffee. I appreciate that so very much. So let's continue with our story tonight. Well, actually, we're beginning a brand new story tonight, which you're going to really love, where there are so many misunderstandings, but that leads to something very special. So before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's continue with tonight's story. Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, sometimes you can think you have it all, until you realize you most certainly don't, especially when life tends to deal you a sledgehammer-like blow that is so violent it tears your life apart in what seems like a single instant. And that happened to Ryan Gosling, 3 years into his marriage, that he'd always considered very happy, until for a brief moment he was left questioning everything he thought he knew about love. Ryan had been lucky in life, the kind of person who always infuriatingly seemed to seamlessly ride the tides of life on serene waters where no storms transgressed, or even seemed to dare cross his path, almost as if his life was being conducted by a finely tuned orchestra, where not a note was out of place. On the surface, Ryan seemed to have it all. The all-American boy who had grown up in a privileged background. He'd been brilliant at sports and school, academically bright, always popular. Many of the girls at school back in the days of senior high would have easily described Ryan as a bit of all right. He wasn't vain by any manner of means, but it was poignantly clear that many young ladies had found him irresistibly attractive, with his wild blonde hair, golden skin, and powerfully strong body that boasted a ripple of impressive muscle definition. And such attributes were only accentuated by an obvious love for gymnastics and swimming, of which he clearly excelled. Indeed, Ryan was annoyingly good at everything he did, and growing up with his mother Susan Gosling, his father Chris, his older sister Vivian, and younger brother Piers, he thought that bad things only happened to other people, but never to the Goslings. When Ryan was a young man at university, studying for an engineering degree, he met what he believed was the quintessential love of his life, quite by random chance, although the initial meeting with Alice Sawyer had not been made of red roses and golden fairy lights, but had pretty much been a non-starter from the word go, and everything that could have gone wrong that morning most certainly did. Alice Sawyer had attended an engineering lecture at the university with her brother Garth. She had accompanied him on his lecture, more out of curiosity than anything else, as she'd never gone to university campus before, and had no aspirations of getting a degree of any kind for herself. She was an accomplished beautician who worked at a local salon, giving facial treatments and cosmetic procedures to her clients, many who were generations older than she was. One day, when Ryan had gone to a lecture on the university campus, he'd sat down on a row of seats approximately 3 feet away from Alice Sawyer, but had not noticed her at first. But he looked up when he heard an attractive female voice saying, "How long is this lecture going to be, Garth? Why do I have this horrible feeling that it's going to be as boring as watching paint dry? I'm not sure coming here today was a good idea after all. I wish you hadn't persuaded me to do this." "Come on, sis," came her brother's reply. "You didn't have anything better to do today, did you? So it's good you came along. Don't you want to see what my lectures are actually like? You did say you were interested." "I said I was interested before I actually came here. But now I'm here, I'm having second thoughts, aren't I? If you want to know the truth, Garth, this lecture hall rather reminds me of being back at school." It was at this point that Ryan casually glanced up from his notes in the direction of the feminine voice, and that was when he saw Alice Sawyer for the very first time, who sat down next to her brother Garth and was talking to him intently about how she was seriously regretting having agreed to come to the university campus with him to attend this lecture. You could tell they were brother and sister, as the likeness in their faces was absolutely uncanny. Both had the same dark glossy hair, fair skin and attractive blue eyes. When Ryan saw Alice Sawyer for the first time, something about her buoyant energy and the feminine way she laughed and expressed herself quite simply took his breath away. It was in that moment that Ryan knew he couldn't leave that university lecture hall without talking to this young woman first. He needed to get her number from her and ask her out on a special date, for in his opinion she was the most magnificent woman he'd ever laid eyes on. But it certainly didn't help that although on the surface Ryan had everything going for him, there were times he was painfully shy, almost excruciatingly so. So indeed making this young woman's acquaintance would not be an easy endeavour by any manner of means. For let's just say crippling shyness is certainly not your best ally, nor is it your friend when you want to give off an energy of assertive confidence, which women invariably find very attractive. As Ryan sat there in the lecture hall, his front leg tapping the ground rather awkwardly, every so often he would surreptitiously glance up from his notes that he was pretending to make with his pen, when in reality he was drawing doodles on his paper, so that he could sneakily look up at Alice without her seeing him. What the lecture had been about that day, Ryan would never have been able to tell you, for his mind was only occupied with one thought. How do I get to meet this beautiful woman before she disappears from my life completely? I have to introduce myself to her, but how do I do it? He did think of perhaps asking Garth for his sister's number, but it was very clear that the young woman's brother was very protective towards his sister, and so he might possibly refuse such an idea. I have to introduce myself to this woman, Ryan told himself, but how do I do this without becoming so blatantly obvious? And I don't want to appear too keen, because if that's the case I might put her off completely. The boring drone of the lecturer's voice was enough to put you to sleep, almost like when you're sitting on a train and it chugs along from one station to the next, and you become so drowsy you almost fail to get off at your due destination. Indeed, nothing that the lecturer was saying even penetrated Ryan's mind, even for a brief second, for all he could think about was the girl who was sitting a mere 3 feet away from him. Alice Sawyer seemed oblivious to his sneaking stares, and disappointingly did not seem to have noticed him at all, even after he deliberately cleared his throat, in the vain hope he would get her attention, and that she would suddenly look his way. But that never happened, although the young man sitting in the seat next to him gave Ryan a couple of disapproving affronted glares, as if he found his clearing of the throat more than a little irritating. So Ryan had whispered, "I'm sorry," but he had just rolled his eyes as if Ryan's apologies certainly didn't wash with him, and he knew exactly what Ryan was attempting to do. Ryan knew he had to do something to grab Alice Sawyer's attention, but the question was what? By the time the lecture was complete, time had run out, rather like the sands in an hourglass. Ryan had still exasperatingly not come up with a subtle way that he could easily introduce himself to this lovely young lady. Alas, his bustling, busy mind was still frantically searching for a good one-liner that might impress the young woman, but nothing came to mind. In any minute he knew that Alice Sawyer would walk out of this lecture hall, and he'd never ever get to see her again. And that was a thought that left a nasty lump developing in the back of his throat that made him feel profoundly nauseous. Then it happened, the moment that Ryan had been dreading. Alice Sawyer rose to her feet, smiling at her brother as she did so, and her warm smile seemed to light up her face, and in that moment Ryan knew that this absolutely was the woman for him. "Wow, that was boring," she told her brother. "I very nearly fell asleep in that lecture. Frankly, I'm surprised I didn't." "I mean, couldn't they get a lecturer who actually inspires the pupils by bringing a little bit more passion about what he's teaching? I mean, honestly, how can you learn from someone with such a monotone voice such as his? Everything about that lecture was uninspiring and drudgerously dreary, although, dare I say it, I noticed some students seemed interested and appeared to be paying attention. It's a good job we're all wired differently, isn't it? And some people actually do find this stuff fascinating, but not me, I hasten to say." "You make a good point, sis. Sometimes I admit it's a struggle to stay awake during Mr. Bryce's lectures, even if you are interested in what he's teaching you. He's a good man, of course, but his lectures can be so monotonously dull. I told you university can be very boring." The young woman made an anguished face. whereby she raised her eyebrows and stifled a huge yawn. "If all your lectures are as bad as this, then you have my deepest sympathy, brother dear. People always talk about university, as if it's such a great big deal. Mum and Dad were like that. They wanted me to come here to study something sensible, instead of follow my passion. And boy, am I glad I didn't listen to them. Sometimes I think you have to follow your own heart. Even though I don't dispute for a second, Mum and Dad were well-meaning. Dad didn't believe I could make a career out of being a beautician, but he was wrong about that, wasn't he? If the truth be told, Garth, I hate to say this so blatantly, but I don't think I could have made it through lectures like this. So coming here's definitely opened my eyes. It's confirmed to me that I did the right thing in following my heart." "Of course you did. What did I tell you? Going to university is overrated," said Garth. "Mum and Dad were mad. I even told them so at the time, to try and push you the way they did. This was definitely not your path. As you can see, you didn't miss out on anything. Didn't I tell you that following your passion was absolutely the right thing to do?" "You did tell me that, and you were right about that. I really am thankful that I'm an esthetician now, thank you very much, and coming here today has confirmed what I already knew." Alice Sawyer began straightening out her pretty summer dress that she was wearing, for it had got slightly crumpled while she was sitting. She began to sashay through the narrow aisles of chairs, towards the doorway of the lecture hall, which she was about to exit with her brother at her side. Ryan's heart was racing at this point. On the inside he was inwardly screaming, "Please, please don't go, don't leave. I might never see you again." Ryan, not knowing exactly what he should do, had clumsily run towards Alice before she'd left the hall, rather like a rambunctious spirited dog that was completely out of control and had managed to escape his owner's grasp. He had to speak to this woman before she completely disappeared from his life like a wisp of smoke, never to be seen again. For a second he stood behind her and was reaching out to tap the back of her narrow shoulders in order to get her attention, when a student walking past him roughly pushed him forwards, so he lost his footing a little and inadvertently pushed the young lady over, so that Alice Sawyer went crashing to the ground in a heap. She stared up at Ryan with her face burning red with embarrassment. This was not what Ryan wanted when he was trying to make a good impression on this lovely young lady. Things could have not got to a worse start, almost as if fate was turning up its nose at him, just to spite him. Alice Sawyer was far from amused. This was not how Ryan had envisaged introducing himself to this lovely, lovely lady. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Alice Sawyer had snapped furiously as she rose to her feet. The student who had pushed past Ryan into Alice had already sauntered past her and left the lecture hall, without even comprehending how his lumbering, unruly movements had caused so much chaos. Alice glared at Ryan furiously. "What's wrong with you? Don't you look where you're going? You pushed me over because you were in such a rush to get out of the lecture hall, and you thought I was holding you up, didn't you?" "I'm very sorry," said Ryan apologetically. "It wasn't like that at all. You've got me wrong. Someone pushed me from behind. I lost my footing and went flying into you, I'm afraid. I do apologize. I never meant for that to happen. I'm awfully sorry, really I am." Alice Sawyer was frowning at Ryan, almost as if she was exceedingly doubtful that she actually believed his story, almost as if she thought it was a lame excuse that he'd boisterously pushed her over like an oversized, spirited, rather ungainly dog. And it wasn't something she actually believed. She nodded her head politely and said, "Well, next time, for goodness sake, look where you're going. You could have really hurt me, barging into me the way you did. I'm quite sure whatever it is that demands your attention can probably wait for a couple of minutes." "But I didn't hurt you, did I?" Ryan had asked, showing a sincere form of concern on his face. "No, you didn't hurt me," said Alice, "but you gave me one hell of a shock for sure. And next time, please be more careful, or someone else may actually get hurt." Ryan couldn't help thinking that even in anger, Alice was absolutely magnificent. He was surprised that anyone who looked so cross and bad-tempered could come across so attractive, but alas, Alice most certainly did. as even in her extreme indignance she seemed to have captured his intrigue. "You heard my sister, didn't you?" said Garth, stepping forward, who was not looking remotely impressed, and obviously regarded Ryan as a lumbering idiot. He had immediately leapt to his sister's defence. "Where are your manners? You pushed my sister right over. You should look where you're going, and not be in such a tearing rush to exit the lecture hall. Have some manners, why don't you?" A couple of students making their way to the exit door had witnessed the drama unfold, and they gave some rather accusatory glances at Ryan, as if they believed he was one of these spirited people that barged into everyone in his haste, just to get out of the lecture hall first, the type of pushy person not too many people naturally warm to. Ryan felt substantially humiliated and exceedingly self-conscious. Indeed, he felt as minuscule as an ant under a microscope. He left the lecture hall with his tail between his legs, like a dog who'd been badly scolded by his owner for peeing on the sofa. He knew things had not gone well for him, and any chance of hoping to have a relationship with the beautiful Alice Sawyer were as close to impossible as you could get. Indeed, as far as Alice Sawyer was concerned, he had come across as a very unchivalrous gentleman, and he very much doubted she'd ever give him a second glance. Apart from anything else, he was exceedingly doubtful that their paths would ever cross, as it was unlikely they mixed in the same circles. A girl like Alice Sawyer either had a boyfriend or wouldn't be sitting on the shelf for very long. Ryan reasoned with himself that some things are just not meant to be, and in the 5 years that followed after that rather unfortunate fiasco, Ryan started to date other women, but all the time he could not forget the young lady that had captured his imagination at the university lecture hall, for even her name, Alice Sawyer, was never ever far from his thoughts. One day after work, one of Ryan's work colleagues, a young man called Ivan Thomas, invited him to join him and his sister and her friend for a drink after work. "Angelie has just SMS'd me," he told Ryan. "She's asked me to do her a very special favour this evening, and bring someone along from work with me, who is handsome, charming and humorous, and I think you tick those boxes, Ryan. Even if I say so myself." "That's kind of you to say," said Ryan. "But why do I get the distinct impression you're trying to set me up on a date with your sister's friend? I'm sorry, but I'm not interested." Ivan chuckled. "It's not like that, Ryan. I'm not trying to set you up on a date. That's the last thing on my mind, if you must know. Apparently my sister Angeline has a friend who's just broken up with her boyfriend and is pretty miserable at the moment. She slipped into a bit of depression, I'm told, and is being really down on herself. My sister asked me to bring someone over to the bar tonight to join us, to lighten the mood, and to help her friend see that not everything is bleak, and life still goes on, even when you hit that rock-bottom place, like she clearly has done. Look, Ryan, I know you mean well, and I'm very sorry that your sister's friend has had it tough, but we've all been there at some point in our lives. Life can suck like that. But I'm sure this friend of your sister's will get over her melancholia sooner or later. But count me out of this experiment if you don't mind. I really don't want to be included. I've got bigger fish I need to fry." "Please don't be like that," said Ivan encouragingly. "I don't think you're getting the full picture, Ryan. My sister recently got engaged to her boyfriend Milo, and I guess her being so happy is making this girlfriend of hers feel all the more alone. Put it this way, I think her friend thought she'd follow my sister's lead and also get engaged, but it turned out her boyfriend cheated on her, and she's now devastated about the whole nasty affair that, dare I say, came as quite a shock to her. So that's why your sister's friend is so miserable. I suppose that's understandable. Her boyfriend cheated on her?" asked Ryan. "That is a bummer. I don't understand men like that. There's no excuse to cheat in relationships. If her boyfriend wasn't happy, why on earth didn't he end things with her, rather than go off and have a secret affair with another woman? That's got to be the lowest thing to do to another human being." "I know, it makes no sense," said Ivan. "I guess relationships are more complicated than we know. I know my sister's friend was sharing an apartment with her boyfriend Dustin, and when she moved in with him, She thought things were going to get serious between the two of them. She rarely believed that wedding bells were round the next corner. She was very committed to the relationship, and actually thought the sun shone out of Dustin's backside. I understand she's been away on business for a couple of days. She went to Paris, I believe, to investigate some very good cosmetic products that are available on the market at the moment. She was able to take an earlier flight back home. She wanted to surprise her boyfriend, and unfortunately she walked into the apartment at the wrong time, because she found her boyfriend in bed with another woman. She was absolutely devastated. He apologized profusely, of course, told her he loved only her, and it was just a dreadful mistake on his part. But she wasn't having any of it. Angeline says her friend is in pieces over the breakup. Well, I can't imagine how that must feel, said Ryan sympathetically. I mean, if your sister's friend thought he was the one, and then he does the dirty on her like that. It's hard to get over something like that, don't you think? And I expect it may mean she'll end up having serious issues with trust, where other men are concerned, in her future relationships. Let's just say once someone has cheated on you, it's common to think that the next person you date will do exactly the same thing to you. So I rather suspect this friend of your sister's is carrying around some unwanted baggage. I think my sister's friend is reasonably resilient, said Ivan. She's got a rather positive mindset. I can't believe I've forgotten what her name is. It's on my tongue, but for some reason I can't remember it. I know her well, so why I forget her name I don't know. But I can be like that from time to time. I've never been good with names. If you must know, Ryan, between you and me, I genuinely think that you and my sister's friend might actually get along. You actually look a lot like her ex, Dustin. So you're probably exactly her type. Although you wouldn't like to hear that, I'm most sure. Of course I don't want to hear that, said Ryan. You've told me he did the dirty on her. I hardly want to be like him. Well, I don't say that you exactly look like him, but you're definitely my sister's friend's type. The type she goes for, so to speak. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to play matchmaker here. Far from it, in fact. I would be pretty useless at that anyway. But Angeline had to drag her friend to the bar tonight to cheer her up. She didn't want to go, of course. But she thinks if her friend meets someone else, it might lift her spirits and make her realize that there are some good fish still in the ocean. People like yourself, who wouldn't mess a girl like her around like Dustin did. You're single, aren't you, Ryan? Or am I ambitiously jumping the gun when I say that? Yes, I am single, Ryan admitted. But what you're not getting, Ivan, is I'm not interested in getting involved with another woman. Especially not one who's clearly damaged goods by the sounds of things. I don't want to be embroiled in her sticky mess, do I? Rather like a fly caught up in a spider's web, where there's no escape. I like my single status, if you must know, and I think I'd like it to stay that way for the time being. I've just had a very bad share of relationships that haven't exactly lasted very long, and I'm not looking forward to dating anyone at the moment, especially someone carrying the baggage from a previous relationship that went badly awry. I'm quite sure your sister's friend, whoever she is, should take some quality time to herself to get over her hurt before she gets back on the merry-go-ride of the dating scene all over again. Dating is a tough business. It's not for the faint-hearted, believe me, I know. And it's no fun, let me tell you. I'm quite sure your sister's friend is not ready to date anyone after being in a long-term relationship. I know if I were in her situation, after discovering my previous relationship was all but a farce, I'm not sure I'd be that eager to get back on the horse again. Maybe not, said Ivan. You make a good point there, Ryan. Just so you know, I'm not trying to play matchmaker here. My sister just wants her friend to have a great evening, and to realize that there are indeed some good men out there who won't mess her around, like her ex so obviously did. And meeting someone like you, even from a friendship perspective, will make her realize that not all the apples in the barrel are bad. Do you get where I'm going with this? Hand on heart, I'm not surreptitiously trying to set you up with this woman. Like you say, she's probably damaged goods,
But what harm would it do coming out with us for the evening? Well, I'm glad you think I might lift your sister's friend out of her melancholia, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for that thankless task. My mother always tells me I've got the most dreadful bedside manner when she's sick, so I doubt I'm the kind of guy your sister's friend would want to meet. I'll probably make her feel even more miserable than she already does. I'd hardly describe myself as the life and soul of the party. I might actually come across as quite social on occasion, but when I'm around people I don't actually know, I can be rather reticent, believe it or not. Oh, come on, Ryan. Be a sport. You only have to drink with us. Have one drink at least. Besides, I'll be buying. It's not like you have to date my sister's friend. Your presence is hopefully going to make this woman see that not all men are pigs. You can be hilariously funny at times, Ryan. You might actually make her laugh, like you make everyone have a good old chuckle back at work. And that would be cool if you did that. Everyone needs to employ humour in grim situations, don't they? And if you can make my sister's friend laugh, well, that's a promising start, is it not? And just think, it'll be your good deed for the day. And maybe him upstairs, said Ivan, referring to God, and pointing up to the ceiling. Well, maybe he'll give you brownie points for being a good Samaritan. Well, now you put it like that, how can I refuse you? Said Ryan. I suppose a drink after work would be rather nice. But just so you know, Ivan, I have no interest whatsoever in dating anyone at the moment. And if I don't succeed in putting a smile on your sister's friend's face, don't blame me for that. I'll do my best, though, to be the good Samaritan you speak of. Well, that's all I can ask of you, Ryan, said Ivan, slapping him on the back. I knew you wouldn't let me down, bro, and I can tell you my sister will be extremely grateful that you agreed to come with us tonight. When Ryan entered the bar, it was a buzz of lively social activity, with much laughter, chatter, and a clattering of glasses. There were a lot of people gathered around the bar, like a flock of hungry geese, eager to be served by the barman on duty, who was standing behind the bar looking a little flustered, rather like a chicken in a coop that has been antagonized by a very lively fox. In the far corner of the bar, seated at a lonely table that overlooked a window onto the street, with 4 empty chairs, sat a young woman alone. She was glancing very briefly at her cell phone, but seemed absorbed in reading her messages, so much so she barely noticed Ivan and Ryan as they approached the table. Ryan knew immediately that this had to be Ivan's sister, for she was the splitting image of him, with the same hooded blue eyes, very neat symmetrical nose, and exactly the same wispy sandy blonde hair. Angeline nearly jumped out of her skin when Ivan said, "Hi, sis, it's me." "You gave me a start, Ivan! Don't come up to me like that without due warning. I was concentrating on my cell phone, and you gave me such a shock." "Sorry, I didn't mean to give you a fright, sis. This is the reinforcement I was telling you about that I brought along with me tonight. And I don't think you'll be disappointed, because Ryan is the office comedian. He knows how to make people laugh. And I'm sure you'll agree he's extremely handsome, so he ticks the boxes you specifically asked of me." "Oh, I'm so pleased you could come this evening, Ryan," said Angeline, eagerly rising to her feet and shaking his hand quite cordially. "My friend could do with a comedian's humour, and my brother's right. You're very easy on the eye, but I'm sure you know that already." "It's kind of you to say," said Ryan. "In regards to being a comedian tonight, on your friend's behalf, I'm not promising to deliver, although I will, of course, try my level best. I will point out, of course, that I believe your brother is wildly exaggerating. I'm not sure I'm that fun anyway." "If my brother thinks you're a hoot, then you definitely are," said Angeline, with a firm conviction, as if everything that Ivan said just had to be the gospel truth. "I'm sure he told you about Alice, but let me put you in the picture before she comes back from the ladies' room. She's washing her face because she was bawling her eyes out a moment ago. I'm glad you didn't come then. But don't tell her I told you that. It makes me mad as hell to see her get so knotted up and twisted and emotionally overwrought by that douchebag. She's in a bad place at the moment. She found out the man she believed she loved did the dirty on her, And he was the one she thought she was going to one day marry. She's got a broken heart, let me tell you. And I'm trying to put the pieces together as best as I can. But it's a tumultuous job at the best of times. I asked my brother to bring you along, Ryan, not to set you up on a date as you might believe. Indeed, that's the last thing on my mind. Besides anything else, I just don't think Alice is ready to date anyone for quite a long time yet. I just want her to see that there's some good men out there, such as yourself, Ryan, who will treat her right. When I tell her that, she becomes extremely argumentative. She tells me that all men are wired to cheat, and she'll never be able to trust anyone ever again as long as she lives. I want her to realise that that is not true, and all is not lost simply because Dustin did the dirty on her. I warned her about Dustin, you know, hundreds of times over, but would she listen? Absolutely not. I think some people can be selectively blind-sighted and deliberately partisan in their relationships and see only what they want to see. And Alice, well, she's a bit like that. She can be so whimsically naive, I'm afraid. But that's part of her charm, I suspect. Over the years, she's always picked out the bad apples off the tree, I'm afraid. And it's about time there was a new turn in the road for her.
You thought your friend's boyfriend was going to cheat on her? Asked Ryan incredulously. You predicted this would happen?
Oh, absolutely. I knew Dustin would cheat on Alice. He's not the faithful type. He's always had a roving eye. Whenever we've gone to places with him, he's clandestinely always sneaking a look at our other attractive woman, which to me is a huge red flag. If you're in a committed relationship, you don't expect a man to behave like that. I never trusted him for a single moment. I mean, I told Alice as much, but she wouldn't hear a word against him. She told me I was wrong about him, and that he only had eyes for her. But that wasn't true. I knew poor Alice was going to have her heart broken sooner or later, and now here we are, with a lot of spilled milk on our hands to be crying over. But this milk, I'm sorry to say, is not so easily mopped up or forgotten about, and only makes things 1,000 times worse. For Alice, I mean, when she's dwelling on her pain like this. I mean, why give that douchebag the time of day, I ask you? I certainly wouldn't. So there we are, that is the end of part 1. Part 2 is tomorrow night, and I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, good night and goodbye.